Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're tackling a topic that's on everyone's mind, personal finance.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, who doesn't want to make smart choices with their money, right?
Exactly. And not just choices, like we want to set ourselves up for success, for the future, achieve our financial goals.
Right. It's about having that financial security, that peace of mind.
Totally. And I know a lot of you out there are really interested in understanding this stuff, like how to make financial decisions, set those goals we were just talking about, and even navigate all those economic factors that come into play. It can feel like a lot, right?
It can, but that's why we're here to break it down and make it understandable.
Exactly. We're going to uncover some of the hidden costs behind our everyday choices.
Oh, yeah, those sneaky opportunity costs, they can really add up.
Yeah, for sure. So buckle up, everybody. We're diving deep into the world of personal finance. Let's get started.
You know, it's funny because when people think about personal finance, they often just think about, like, numbers and budgets, right?
Right, like spreadsheets and all that.
Yeah, exactly. But what's really cool about personal finance is that it's not just about the numbers themselves. It's really about your values, your dreams.
Oh, I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, how you can use your money as a tool to create that life you want.
Okay. I love that idea. So how do we get started with that? Like, where do we even begin with this whole financial planning thing?
So think of it like this. You're building a house. You wouldn't just, like, start building without a blueprint.
Right. Oh, no way.
Right. So think of your financial plan as that blueprint. It's that plan for a solid financial future.
So it's the foundation, basically.
It is, and it all begins with, like, really grasping that process of making financial decisions. That's where it starts.
Okay. So I'm sure a lot of people listening right now are like, financial planning, ugh, so boring.
Right.
Or like they might even be thinking, it's overwhelming. I don't even know where to start.
Totally. It's easy to just want to bury your head in the sand and hope for the best, right? But the truth is, taking control of your finances can actually reduce stress.
Really?
Yeah. And it gives you this, like, sense of freedom. Think about it. Like, when you have a plan, you're not just reacting to whatever life throws at you.
Right. You're being proactive.
Exactly. You're proactively shaping your financial future.
Okay. I like that, being proactive.
Yeah.
So let's say someone is ready to take that control. Like, what's the first step in creating this financial blueprint? What do they do?
Well, before you even dive into budgeting, investing, any of that stuff, you got to define your financial goals.
Okay. So dream big.
Yeah, dream big, but also be realistic, right? Like, break down those big dreams into smaller steps that you can actually, like, take action on.
Right. Break it down.
And that's where SMART goals come in. You've probably heard of these before.
Yeah, I have.
So they need to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So it's not enough to just say, I want to save more money.
Right. That's too vague.
Exactly. A SMART goal would be something like, I want to save $5,000 for a down payment on a condo in the next 2 years.
Okay. That's much more specific.
Right. That goal, that's specific, it's measurable, achievable, it's relevant to your overall goals, and it has a deadline, like that time-bound piece.
Okay. So let's say we've got our SMART goals all figured out. Now what? What's the next step?
Okay, so now we need to figure out where you stand financially, like right now, at this moment.
Like take stock.
Exactly, like taking a financial selfie.
Love that.
Right. So we're looking at your income, your expenses, your assets, your debts. It's about getting that whole picture.
Okay. So before we even think about like reaching those goals, we have to know where we're starting from.
Precisely. Because once you understand where your money's coming from, where it's going, you can start seeing those areas where you might need to make some changes.
Okay. So like maybe cutting back on spending, finding ways to earn more, things like that.
Exactly. Or maybe finding ways to pay down debt faster.
Yeah, that makes sense. So in the stuff that we've been looking at, it seems like spending is often a big hurdle for people.
Oh, it's a huge one.
Yeah, so any advice for getting that under control?
It really starts with awareness, Like, have you ever actually tracked your spending for a month?
I know, I should probably do that more often.
Right. But it can be really eye-opening, to see where your money is actually going. There are some really cool apps out there that can help you categorize your expenses and see where you might be, like, overspending.
So basically becoming more mindful about our spending habits.
Exactly. Making intentional choices about where your money goes.
Not just mindlessly swiping the credit card.
No, not at all. It's about deciding, okay, this is how I want to allocate my resources.
Okay, I like that shift in mindset. So it's about taking control instead of, letting our finances control us.
Exactly.
All right. So we've talked about these financial blueprints and we've touched on taking control. But we also got to consider those external forces that can, like, throw us off course.
Yeah, the economic weather.
Yes, the economic weather.
Right. We can't control it, but we can be prepared for it.
So you mean things like inflation and interest rates?
Yep, those are big ones.
And those are things that always seem so complicated to me.
Yeah, they can be, but it's important to understand, like, at least the basics.
Okay, yeah.
So inflation, that's the one everyone's talking about right now. It's basically, prices going up over time.
Everything's getting more expensive.
Exactly. And that means, essentially, that your money buys less over time.
Oh, that's a bummer. So how do we protect ourselves from that?
Well, that's where this concept of the time value of money comes in.
Oh.
So basically, $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow.
What? How does that work?
Because, like, that dollar today can be invested and it has time to grow.
Oh. Okay, so it's not just sitting there doing nothing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is starting to make more sense. But, like, how do we actually calculate the time value of money?
I know, it sounds like a complicated equation or something.
Yeah. But there are some helpful tools and calculators that can help you figure that out.
Yeah.
The main thing to understand is compound interest.
Okay.
It's basically interest earning interest.
So it's like a snowball rolling downhill.
Exactly. It keeps growing and growing.
Yeah.
And the sooner you start investing, the more time that snowball has to, roll and get bigger.
Okay. That's motivating.
Right. So even small contributions can make a big difference over time. It's the magic of compounding.
Wow. Okay. So we've talked about inflation, but you also mentioned interest rates, and
Yeah.
those are fluctuating all the time, right?
Oh, yeah, they are.
So, like, how do those impact our financial decisions?
So basically, interest rates, that's the cost of borrowing money, right?
Oh, okay.
So when interest rates are high, it costs you more to, like, take out a loan,
Oh, no.
right? But the good news is you also earn more on your savings.
Oh, okay. So there's a plus side.
There is. And then, like, when interest rates are low, it's cheaper to borrow money.
Okay, yeah. But your savings, they might not grow as quickly.
So it's a trade-off, basically.
It is. And, it's important to stay informed, right?
Yeah.
Because interest rates can change quickly. So you kind of have to adjust your strategies accordingly.
So staying informed is key.
Yeah, totally.
It's like checking the weather forecast before you leave the house.
That's a great analogy.
So far, we've talked about setting goals, understanding our current financial situation, navigating economic forces like those interest rates and inflation. But there's something else I'm really curious about. The hidden costs of our choices. What does that even mean?
Oh, that's a great question. And it brings us to this concept called opportunity cost.
Okay, and opportunity cost is?
Well, have you ever considered what you're giving up to listen to this very podcast right now?
That's a good point.
Right. Maybe you could be working right now or spending time with family and friends, or maybe you could be learning a new skill or even just relaxing.
Right. So many possibilities.
Exactly. And that's opportunity cost, like at a personal level. It's the value of the next best alternative that you're not choosing.
So it's not just about the money, it's about our time and experiences too.
Precisely. And then there's also the financial side of opportunity cost. Every financial decision you make, it comes with an opportunity cost.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me an example.
Sure. So let's say you choose to invest in a super low risk savings account.
Okay, so it's safe, but maybe not growing that much.
Right. It's safe, but you might be giving up higher returns that you could have earned from a riskier investment.
Oh, so it's like a trade-off.
Exactly. It's a trade-off.
So every decision has a trade-off, like we're always choosing one path over another.
You got it.
Okay. This whole concept of opportunity cost has really got me thinking. It's like there's a hidden price tag on every choice we make, both personally and financially.
Yeah, I love that way of thinking about it. And the more aware you are of those hidden costs, the better decisions you can make.
Decisions that are really in our best interest.
Right, exactly.
Okay, this is all incredibly helpful, but I'm not going to lie, I'm starting to feel like my brain is getting full.
I hear you. It's a lot to take in, but don't worry, we'll take it step by step.
Okay, good.
And remember, personal finance is a journey, not a destination.
Okay, I like that. It's a process.
It is.
Yeah.
And the more we learn, the more confident we'll become in making those tough financial decisions.
Yeah, that makes sense. So before we move on, let's do a quick recap of what we've covered so far, just to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Okay, sounds good.
So we started by, emphasizing how important it is to understand that process of making financial decisions.
Right. That's the foundation.
The foundation.
Yeah, and then we talked about the power of setting those SMART goals.
Right. The specific, measurable, all that good stuff.
Exactly.
And then we got to assess our current financial situation, that financial selfie.
I love that.
And then we ventured into the world of like the economic forces at play, like inflation, interest rates, and that super important concept of the time value of money.
Which really highlights the importance of investing early.
Yes.
And then finally, we talked about that, that kind of hidden cost, that opportunity cost.
Yes.
The things we give up when we make a choice.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot.
It is.
But I feel like, I don't know, I have a much clearer understanding now.
That's great to hear. That's the goal. And remember, financial literacy, it's an ongoing process.
It's a journey.
Exactly. And the more you learn, the more you can take control of your financial future.
All right. I'm feeling empowered already. So I'm ready to move on to the next part of our deep dive.
Let's do it. Building on what we were just talking about, all those concepts, it's super important to understand how you get those financial resources in the first place.
Yeah, you can't really plan for the future if you don't know where the money's coming from.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Obtaining those financial resources, it includes everything from the income you earn at your job to investments, inheritances, gifts, even government benefits,
So it's more than just earning a paycheck. We're talking like a full picture of all the ways money comes in.
Absolutely. And as your life changes, so will your sources of income.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
So like a young person starting out might rely mainly on their job.
Right.
While someone nearing retirement might have a mix of pensions, investments, Social Security, that kind of thing.
I see. So understanding our income streams, it helps us not just for now, but to prepare for different life stages down the road.
Exactly. It allows you to anticipate changes planned for those potential gaps in income and just ensure a smoother financial transition, over the years.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. But let's be real, even with the best laid plans, things don't always go smoothly.
Oh, this is true.
So what about those unexpected bumps in the road, those financial curveballs?
Ah, yes, that brings us to risk.
Risk.
Yeah, just that you can't control the weather, you can't completely eliminate financial risk, but you can definitely prepare for it.
Okay, so what are some of those financial storms we should be on the lookout for?
Well, there are two main categories.
Okay.
Economic risks and personal risks.
Okay. Can you break those down a little bit more?
Sure. So economic risks, those are the big picture things that impact the overall economy. Like, for example, a sudden rise in interest rates.
Okay.
Imagine you've got a low interest rate locked in on your mortgage.
Okay.
And then suddenly rates skyrocket.
Oof. That wouldn't be good.
No, it could make it way more expensive to refinance in the future.
So that's what interest rate risk is.
That's exactly it.
Right.
And we already talked about inflation risk.
Right.
The idea that your money buys less over time if prices keep going up.
Right.
So let's say you're saving diligently for retirement, but inflation eats away at the value of your savings.
Yeah.
You could end up with a nest egg that's much smaller than you expected.
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
It is. It highlights that just saving money isn't enough. You need to make sure your savings are outpacing inflation. They're growing faster.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then there's liquidity risk, right?
Yes, liquidity risk. That's the risk that you might not be able to access your money fast enough when you need it.
Oh.
So let's say you've invested heavily in real estate and all of a sudden a big unexpected expense comes up.
Right.
It can take a while to sell a property, so you might not have that cash readily available when you need it most.
So it's about finding that balance between investments that can grow, but also having access to cash quickly if you need it.
Exactly. It's all about managing those different types of risk based on your own situation and your goals.
Yeah.
And then on the personal side, we've got those personal risks. And these are risks that are specific to you and your circumstances.
Okay, so give me some examples of personal risks.
So think about things like the risk of becoming disabled or even premature death.
Yeah.
I know these are tough topics, but they could seriously impact your ability to earn an income or support your family.
Right, because you could have a great plan, but if something happens and you can't work, it throws everything off it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why it's essential to have the right insurance coverage to protect yourself and your loved ones against those risks.
Okay, insurance. So disability insurance, that would help replace some of your income if you can't work.
Exactly. So we're not just managing our money, but also managing risk to make sure we stay financially secure. And speaking of challenges, the source material also mentions asset and liability risk.
What are those?
So asset risk refers to the potential for your assets, like your home or investments, to lose value. Think about the housing market crash back in 2008.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people saw the value of their homes drop significantly, and that really hit their financial security hard.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mm.
So asset risk is basically understanding that the value of our stuff can go up and down and being prepared for that.
Right. And then you've got liability risk, which is the risk of being held financially responsible for something.
Okay.
So imagine you accidentally cause a car accident or someone gets injured on your property.
Yeah.
You could be liable for those damages. And if you don't have the right insurance, those costs could be really tough to handle.
Okay, so insurance really is important. It's not just a piece of paper. It's about protecting ourselves.
Absolutely.
I
And it's not just about having insurance, but having the right kind and the right amount of coverage for your needs.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
It's interesting how all these things we've talked about, they all fit together.
they do.
From setting goals, understanding the economy, managing risk, it's all connected.
It's like a big web.
It is.
Each thread plays a role in shaping our overall financial well-being. So let's zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture. The source material talks about the different parts of personal financial planning. It's like a roadmap for success, right?
Yeah, it is.
It starts with obtaining those financial resources, which we already covered.
Okay.
Then comes the planning phase, setting those SMART goals, creating a budget, developing a strategy that matches your values and what you want to achieve.
Right, and saving is a big part of that too.
Oh,
Right?
absolutely.
Building that cushion for emergencies and long-term goals like retirement or buying a house.
Exactly. And then there's borrowing debt can be a useful tool when used wisely, like taking out a mortgage to buy a home or investing in your education.
Right.
But it's super important to manage debt responsibly and not get trapped in a cycle of high interest rates and growing balances.
Yeah, because out-of-control debt can really mess up even the best plans.
For sure. And of course, we can't forget about spending. That's a big one for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely a challenge.
But it's also the area where we have the most control. By tracking our expenses, making a budget, and just being mindful about how we spend.
Right.
We can align our spending with our financial goals.
It's not just about making more money. It's about using the money we have in smarter ways.
You got it. It's about that holistic approach, looking at income, expenses, assets, debts, and how much risk you're comfortable with.
Speaking of risk tolerance, that's another piece of the puzzle, right?
Yes.
Understanding how much risk we're okay with taking when it comes to investments.
Exactly. Some people are just naturally more cautious, while others are comfortable with more risk if it means potentially higher returns.
Right, so there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Not at all. We need to tailor our investment strategies to our own personalities and our financial goals.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's probably where getting some advice from a financial expert could be helpful.
Absolutely. Financial education and seeking advice from qualified professionals can make a huge difference. And, the source material really stresses the importance of investing, not just saving.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Why is investing so important?
Well, saving is about preserving your money, keeping it safe.
Right.
But investing is about growing it, putting your money to work for you.
Okay.
So by investing in the stock market, bonds, real estate, other investment options, you have the potential to earn a return on your investment and build wealth over time.
So it's like planting a seed and watching it grow.
I love that analogy. It's perfect. You need the right conditions like fertile soil and sunlight to help that investment flourish. And just like a gardener needs to take care of their plants,
Right.
investors need to keep an eye on their investments, make adjustments as needed.
Okay, so we've got planning, saving, borrowing, spending, managing risk investing. What about that final stage, retirement and estate planning?
Yes, that's an important one, especially as we get older. Retirement planning is about making sure you have enough income to live comfortably after you stop working.
Right.
It involves things like contributing to retirement accounts, making smart investment decisions, considering your healthcare needs in retirement.
So it's more than just saving enough money. It's about a plan for all aspects of life after work.
You got it. And estate planning is just as important. It's about making sure your assets are distributed according to your wishes after you're gone.
Okay.
This involves things like creating a will, setting up trusts, designating beneficiaries for your accounts.
Wow. There's a lot that goes into creating a solid financial plan.
There is. It's like building a house. You need a strong foundation and a well-designed structure to make sure it lasts.
That's a great way to put it. Hearing you explain all this makes me realize that we have a lot of power in shaping our financial future. It's not just about luck. It's about making good decisions and taking action.
Absolutely. And the best part is, you don't have to be a financial whiz to get started. There are tons of resources out there to help you: books, websites, podcasts, financial advisors, even software to manage your money.
It's empowering to know we have the tools and knowledge to take control.
It is. And remember, it's never too early or too late to start. Whether you're just starting your career or close to retirement, there's always something you can do to improve your financial well-being.
Okay, so let's talk about some specific strategies. What are some things we can do to actually achieve our financial goals?
Well, one of the most effective things is to develop good financial habits.
Okay, I'm listening. What kind of habits are we talking about?
Think of it like building a strong financial foundation brick by brick. One of the most important habits is using a spending plan.
A spending plan.
Yeah, which is basically a budget.
So tracking our money and making sure it's aligned with our goals.
Exactly. A spending plan helps you take control of your cash flow and make sure you're not spending more than you earn.
So it's about making conscious choices about where our money goes instead of just letting it slip away.
Precisely. Another super important habit is saving regularly. Whether it's setting aside a chunk of each paycheck or automating transfers to a savings account,
Right.
making saving a consistent habit is key to building that financial cushion for emergencies and reaching your goals.
It's like paying yourself first before you pay all your other bills.
Exactly. And speaking of bills, paying them on time is another crucial habit. Late payments can lead to hefty fees and hurt your credit score,
Right.
which can make it harder and more expensive to borrow money in the future.
So it's not just about being responsible. It's about protecting our financial health for the long term.
Exactly. And let's not forget about insurance. We've already talked about how important it is to manage risk,
Yeah.
and having the right insurance coverage is a big part of that.
Yeah, it's like having a safety net.
Exactly. Whether it's health insurance, auto insurance, homeowners insurance, disability insurance, having the right coverage can protect you from financial disaster if something unexpected happens.
It sounds like building good financial habits is all about taking those proactive steps
It is.
to manage our money, protect our assets, and secure our financial future.
Exactly. It's about creating a system that supports your financial well-being even when life throws you curveballs.
This has been so helpful. But I have to admit, all this talk about finances can sometimes feel a bit overwhelming.
I get it. There's a lot to learn and so many decisions to make.
Yeah.
But remember, you don't have to have all the answers right away. The key is to just start somewhere, even if it's with small steps.
So what's the best way to approach this whole learning process? How can we make it less intimidating?
Well, one of the best things you can do is to embrace a mindset of continuous learning.
So we're all students in the School of Personal Finance.
Exactly. There's always something new to learn, whether it's reading a book, listening to a podcast, going to a workshop, talking to a financial advisor. The important thing is to stay curious and really engage with the material.
So we need to invest in our financial education, just like we invest in our savings in retirement.
Precisely. And it's not just about learning the information, it's about applying it to your own situation.
Right, because what works for one person might not work for another.
Absolutely. You need to find strategies that fit your values, your goals, your risk tolerance, and that's where having good information sources is really important.
So what kind of sources should we be looking for?
Well, there's a ton of great information online, from reputable websites to financial blogs and podcasts. You can also find a lot of helpful resources at your library or bookstore. And if you're looking for more personalized advice, consider talking to a qualified financial advisor.
So do your research, be careful about what you're reading, and get advice from trusted experts if you need it.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask questions. The more you engage with the material, the more you'll learn and the more confident you'll become in making financial decisions.
It's like anything else, the more you practice, the better you get.
Right. But how can we make sure we're actually putting this knowledge into practice and not just passively taking in information?
That's a good question.
One effective strategy is to set small, achievable goals and track your progress.
So instead of trying to change everything overnight, focus on making smaller changes that we can build on.
Exactly. It's about creating positive reinforcement. When you reach a small goal, it motivates you to keep going.
Just like training for marathon. You wouldn't try to run 26 miles on your first day.
Right. You'd start small and gradually increase your mileage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just like a marathon runner needs to pace themselves, we need to be patient and persistent with our financial goals.
Absolutely. There will be times when it's tough, but keep reminding yourself why you started and stay focused on the long-term vision.
So it's not just about knowing this stuff, it's about having the discipline to actually do it.
You got it. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. There are people who can help you, financial advisors, mentors, support groups. even friends and family who know about personal finance.
Right.
It's about building a support system and surrounding yourself with people who can encourage you and keep you accountable.
That's so important.
It is, because at the end of the day, achieving financial success isn't just about the money, it's about living a fulfilling life. And having a strong financial foundation can give you the freedom and security to pursue your passions and live the life you've always wanted.
Okay, that's inspiring. But let's get back to the practical stuff for a minute. We talked about budgets.
Right.
But how do we actually make one that works?
Yeah.
And what about debt? How do we start getting a handle on that and become debt-free?
Those are great questions, and they lead us into some really useful strategies for reaching your financial goals. We'll dive into those right after the break.
Okay, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty. We've talked about the big picture, but now I want to know, like, the practical stuff. How do we actually create a budget that we can stick to, and what are some strategies for tackling debt? Let's get into it.
All right, let's do it. Let's start with budgeting. You know, I think a lot of people hear the word budget and they kind of cringe. It sounds restrictive, you know?
Yeah, like deprivation.
Exactly, like you're limiting yourself, but it really doesn't have to be that way.
Okay, good. So it's not about, like, restricting ourselves.
No, not at all. Think of a budget more as like a tool for empowering yourself financially. It helps you track where your money's going so you can make conscious choices.
Okay, I like that being more conscious.
Right. So it's about aligning your spending with your values, with your goals.
Okay, that sounds a lot more appealing.
Yeah.
But how do we create a budget that actually works? Like, there are so many different methods out there. Where do we even start?
There are a lot of different methods, and the best one is really just the one that works for you, the one that you're going to stick to. You know, some people really like the 50-30-20 budget.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that one.
So that's where 50% of your income goes to your needs, you know, like housing, food, transportation.
Okay.
30% goes to your wants, you know, the fun stuff, entertainment, dining out. And then 20% goes to savings and debt repayment.
Okay, so that's a pretty simple breakdown.
Yeah. And then other people prefer like the envelope system, you know, where you actually allocate cash to different spending categories.
Oh, okay, yeah, so different strokes for different folks.
Exactly. But regardless of what method you choose, the first step is always tracking your income and expenses.
Makes sense.
You got to know where your money's coming from and where it's going before you can make any adjustments.
Yeah, for sure. And luckily, there are all those apps out there now to help with that.
Oh, yeah. Tons of them. Super helpful.
Okay, so once we have a clear picture of our cash flow, we can start, setting spending limits for different categories. But what about unexpected expenses? Those always seem to pop up. How do we plan for that in our budget?
That's where that emergency fund comes in. It's like a safety net.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It protects you from those unexpected things that life throws at you. Ideally, you should aim to have about 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses saved up, in an account that you can access easily.
So if I lose my job or, I don't know, have some sort of medical emergency, I have something to fall back on.
Exactly. It just gives you peace of mind, knowing that you're prepared.
Yeah, that's huge. Okay, so that's budgeting. Now let's talk about the dreaded D word, debt. For a lot of people, debt is a major source of stress. So where do we even begin to tackle that?
Yeah, debt can feel really overwhelming, but the key is just to have a plan, and just stay focused on your goals. One strategy that a lot of people find helpful is the debt snowball method.
Oh, yeah, the debt snowballs. I've heard of that.
Yeah, so with that method, you basically list out all your debts from smallest to largest.
Okay.
And you focus on paying off the smallest one first while you're still making, minimum payments on the others.
Okay. So it's kind of like a psychological boost, right? Like you see that first debt disappear and it keeps you motivated.
Exactly. It gives you that momentum. And then once that smallest debt is paid off, you take that payment amount and you roll it into the next smallest debt. And you just keep going.
Okay, so it snowballs.
It does. You just keep knocking them out one by one.
I like that. But what about like credit card debt? That usually has a higher interest rate. Should we focus on paying that off first, even if it's not the smallest?
Yeah, that's another good strategy, and it's called the debt avalanche method.
Oh, okay.
So with this one, you focus on paying off the debt with the highest interest rate first.
Okay, so you're saving money on interest charges in the long run.
Right. So it really just depends on, your situation and what you're comfortable with.
So again, find what works for you. But either way, like you said, the key is to be consistent.
Consistency is key.
And just stay committed to that plan.
Absolutely. It's a marathon, not a sprint. It's going to take time. But just remember why you started and keep your eye on that prize, financial freedom.
Okay. This has been such a great conversation. I feel like I have so much more knowledge and so many tools now to actually take control of my finances.
That's fantastic. And remember, personal finance is a journey, not a destination. There are going to be ups and downs along the way, but just keep learning, keep growing, and keep making choices that align with your goals and your values.
And to remember that we're not alone in this.
Absolutely not. There are so many resources out there to help you. There are books, websites, podcasts, financial advisors. Don't be afraid to reach out for help.
So, wow, we covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We talked about the basics, setting goals, figuring out where our money's going, understanding all those economic forces, and even how to manage risk and create a budget that actually works.
Yeah, we even got into some specific strategies for tackling debt and building those good financial habits.
Exactly. And I think for me, the biggest takeaway is that personal finance, it's not just about numbers. It's about making sure our financial choices align with our values, our dreams, and our vision for the future.
I love that. It's about creating a life that you love.
Yes. So for everyone listening out there, now that you have all this knowledge, all these tools, think about what's the first step you're going to take toward your own goals. Remember, every journey starts with a single step. It could be creating a budget, starting an emergency fund, even just reading a book about personal finance. Whatever it is, take that step and start building that financial future that you deserve.
Absolutely. And thanks for joining us on this deep dive into personal finance. We hope you found it helpful and inspiring. Happy planning, everyone.